for October 22nd. Mayor Berube is out of town. He's going to try to join us by Zoom. He's not on yet. So you guys get the pleasure of dealing with me tonight. One thing I'd like to, a point of emphasis, I spoke with John. I have obligations tonight to help shoot fireworks for Harrisville City at 8 o'clock. So if we can keep this meeting moving, I would really appreciate it. But stay on topic and we'll get going. All right. Tonight, we're going to start with an invocation, thought, pledge of allegiance from Councilmember Watson.
Thank you. I just wanted to share, I went to a training recently. So I am an advisor for the Youth City Council for North Ogden City. And we've applied for a grant and where it was awarded money for our service as a committee. Just for everyone's information, there's 25 youth in the city of North Ogden who are part of this youth council, and we have a youth mayor and other positions, and they have opportunities to learn and to serve. In this training that was offered by the grant, they explained all the research that's behind the funding, and the keys to youth success in today's crazy world is, they say, two things: service learning and near peer mentoring. So basically, if these youth can feel like they're important to someone else's life, their words mean something to someone else, a peer, and if they can serve outside themselves, then they can become a successful leader. So we were trained to help the youth with these things, and I feel like it's applicable to all of us as we try to become better leaders and influencers in each of our own different aspects of life. They said when youth serve others, then they have intrinsic value, rewards, and they can see that other people have problems, not just themselves. And then when they build others, they can build their own resilience. So I just thought those were great benefits that we can all think about as we help serve, that we, in our own ways, whatever service that may be, that we can see intrinsic value and realize other people can be strengthened by people around them, and that we can build our own resilience by serving and building others. So that's what I wanted to share. It's been a really great experience working with the youth. They are inspiring. So anyway, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Watson. I forgot to recognize we do have Councilmember Severing online on Zoom with us, so he's here participating as well. Okay, first order, do call for a conflict of interest. Does anyone have anything they need to disclose? All right, seeing none, we'll go to number 2, discussion and action to approve October 1st, 2024 meeting minutes. Anyone have any discussion or want to make a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes from October 1st, 2024.
Thanks, Councilmember Pulver.
I second that.
Second by Councilmember Severing. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on. We'll open it up for public comments. Now is the time to come make a comment, state your name, whether you're resident of North Ogden. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Cheryl Stoker, North Ogden. I'm here to, first of all, say how I appreciate the police department in trying to come to some decisions and figure out with Mountain Road and the speed and the traffic and what, I don't know what can be done, but it's just getting worse of the speed. And they come up with their signs saying how the speed limits, but they put them in the wrong places and at the wrong time. So I don't know that, in my opinion, that they get an accurate account of how fast they really are coming. And they come down heading south off of the top of Mountain Road. And by the time they hit my house, if they're going 35, that's pretty unusual. Mostly they're going 30 or more. And so now the berm is about to go back up, so it keeps people from coming into my yard. We've had a broken window, we've had a tire on our front porch, we've had a car almost hit our house. I would have a really nice rose garden every year for the roses that I've had to replace that have been taken out. So anyway, I just hope it's only going to get worse and someday somebody will lose their life on that road. But anyway, thank you.
My name is Lonnie Eldridge and I do live in North Ogden. I'm going to just basically say just what she said. You know, I live on 1510 North. Let me tell you, it is a nightmare. People come down that way too fast. It's a short road, but they're coming down way fast. It is a hill. So just any help would be absolutely great. And I don't know exactly what that means, but needs something going on over there. Thanks, guys.
Any other public comments? See, we have one on Zoom, but no hands raised. Okay, we'll close public comments. Next item, discussion and or action to consider ordinance 2024-20 annexing 20.5 acres located at approximately 1661 North Washington Boulevard. And our presenters, Ryan Santoro.
Yes. Thank you. First, we will open the public hearing for any public that want to speak out about the annexation. Should I present first, John, or do we just receive comments and then I explain? I apologize.
So usually Scott helps us take the lead on this, but he is out with an injury. So so let's make sure everyone knows what we're talking about. So we'll show the map and then we can do the public hearing and then talk.
Okay, great. So what we're talking about today is an annexation, which Travis Taylor and Colton Bryan with We States Companies. Am I saying that right? West States, sorry. Thank you. I had a feeling I was incorrect on that. They have filed this annexation petition on behalf of Jim Hill, who owns the property at 1661 North Washington Boulevard. The annexation began with them going to Weber County Surveyor, who reviewed the annexation map, and they approved that on July 2nd, 2024. The next step after that was the city council accepting the petition, which you guys did on August 6th, 2024. The property is within the North Ogden City Annexation Declaration Policy. And so we are here tonight to meet the requirements of the public hearing comment. We opened it up for protest. No protests were received during that period. And then if John wants to bring up that map, we can show you where it's located.
You know which exhibit the map is?
Yeah, I think it's, let me bring it up. C. And then it's also on their presentation if it's the property map.
Okay. Maybe I'll just pull up their presentation and show it.
No, that's the actual map.
So this is the area council. Washington Boulevard is over here on the right side of the screen. And then 1700 North is on the north side or the top of the screen. And then at the bottom of this property, there are some more North Ogden properties and future properties to be annexed into North Ogden as well on the south side. So it's kind of in between some existing properties have been annexed into the city.
Does anyone have any questions for Ryan or John? Okay, we'll be looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing regarding this annexation.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpez. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Councilmember Watson, all in favor?
Aye.
Fine. Okay, the public hearing is now opened. If anyone has any comments, would ask you to come to the podium, state your name, whether you live in North Ogden, and any comments regarding this annexation. All right, seeing no comment, look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Councilmember Pulver, thank you. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpez. All those in favor? Oh,
No,
John?
you're good. Yeah. I
Okay.
just have a comment after your vote.
Yes. All right. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All right. The public hearing is now closed. John?
So we have the applicant that would like to show you what they're presenting, and then I'll go over and review on behalf of Scott the information related to the planning commission recommendation.
Okay.
So
And it's Travis with Wes. Yes. Thank you.
Well, in the interest of making this quick, I would just, this may be a little out of order, but I'll just make a motion that we approve everything tonight. Okay, let's show that. So we're getting the cart a little bit before the horse here on the layout. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a feel for what we're looking at, the type of product that we build, and kind of give you a feel for who we are and what we do. Mud Creek is probably the stumbling block in here. It kind of wanders its way through the west half of that. And we'll have to work with the state on realigning that. I know that Severing to the north of us is tackling that, and the walls on the south of us are tackling that as well. So, but this just kind of gives you a feel for the combination of stacked flat units, townhome style units. There's different styles of both. We can just kind of scroll through. This just kind of gives you an idea of who we are. Quite a few communities developed. We have several active. You can see some as far as Utah County and up into Cache County. These are some recently completed ones. The top one is in North Logan. This one is a combination of, it's got townhomes off to the right, and then you can see some stacked flats there to the left. Wall and 17th, the one on the bottom is on the, or sorry, the station on, wait, no, you were back. Wall and 17th, okay. The last slide, whatever that one was, that one right there. The one on the bottom is the hard corner of Wall and 17th. That one was recently completed. That's two large stacked flat buildings. And then there's a second half of that that sits a little to the west in Ogden, if you'll scroll down. And that's the one on the bottom there, station on 17th. That one's a combination of, you can see the townhomes up in the background, and it has a clubhouse with a pool. Highland Vista, that's down in Highland, that was just straight townhomes that we did, 80, I think it was 80 units. Let's scroll to the next one. Covent Pleasant View, that one's here close. That one turned out great. There was two halves there, one that we sold part of, and then this is the one that we kept with the 88 townhomes. I think there were 80 something on the other side as well. Porter Ranch is out in Eagle Mountain, 128 townhomes. These are mostly courtyard style with the rear load garage and then the front doors that face each other onto the courtyard space. These are two that are currently at the final stages of planning and approval at the top one in Ogden, and then Springville is under construction right now, just on the horizontal improvements. You can go to the next one. There's another one. This is a mix of single family and townhome product up in Nibley. There's about 270 units total. And Juniper Springs is one that we just completed in Saratoga Springs. Really great. It just kind of gives you a feel for that courtyard style. I think they live really nice. It's a good product. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. Another couple of projects that we've done. This one is the longest running one that I've been involved with, the Cove at Harriman Springs. And it's about 1,000 acres in Harriman on the hillside there. We built I don't know if you can see it, there's a pond there on the top left with this big sign, the welcome sign that welcomes you in. And we did a state fisheries project there. on that. And North Star Ranch, we're working with Ivory Homes on that one. We've owned that one for a lot of years, since the last recession, the 2008 recession. Let's skip to the next one. And that brings us back to this. So this is the map that you saw before, the 20.5 acres roughly, ties into the Severing's project to the north. Danny Walls, you can see that's an old layout of his, down at the bottom of, it kind of looks like a hammerhead off to the west end of that. Let's scroll to the next one. And again, back to, it shows you the rough layout. Again, this is going to have to be modified as we get into detailed engineering design, of course, and with whatever input the state has on Mud Creek. So that's pretty much it. This is a combination, will be a combination of our companies, West States Construction, J. Thomas Homes, and Sella Asset Management. They're all sister companies of ours that'll work on this project you might hear the names of. But anyway, we're excited to be here. Thanks for looking our project over and reviewing it. The council, the planning commission meeting was productive, and we got a lot of good feedback from them. We've been working with the school and trying to figure some things out on open space usage down the road, and coordinating with Wall on our south. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I should like to point out, we do have Mayor Berube that has joined us on Zoom now. Is anyone have any questions for Travis while he's here?
I do.
Okay.
So when you said just at the end there that you have been working with the school district, is that just in general or on this property specifically?
So I think it was 2 weeks ago, we met with Scott, Ryan, and Eric and Larry with the school district about their elementary school property. Just kind of, it's along our western side. We share that. So when we build 150, it'll come down and provide the access to their property.
Mm-hmm.
So it was today or yesterday afternoon, Larry had his guy lay out a couple of they have different versions of, and I can't remember the names, but there's like a 4 cluster or 6 cluster, whatever they call these different cluster classroom buildings onto their site. And the idea is on the south end of their site, there is a retention pond that the city manages for them, although the property is owned by the school district. And apparently there's several elementary schools that you guys have a relationship with the school district, that they're kind of shared between park and school facility. So we met with them to talk about what could happen and what would be a good idea with this open space. The planning commission hit very hard on the master plan's desire to have park open space in this area somewhere. And so we've been asked to kind of see what we can help come up with on that. And this pond area seemed to be the perfect place to do it because everybody's stuck with it. It's going to be there. Eric says, we can't really add to their capacity there. We'll have to retain some of our own on stormwater on site. But to see how we could work with the elementary school, with the city, to see if we can incorporate that open space into something that could be used with the school and with the city. So we're just kind of working our way through that.
Okay,
So-
great. So the retention pond area that's currently there, that would be included in this 20 acres that you're managing? Or is that
No,
owned
that's
by the
offsite
school?
from us.
Oh, okay.
So what the planning commission was pushing is more programmable, large format spaces that could service
Like a
for
soccer
soccer
field,
fields
right.
and whatnot. So we have some open space set aside in ours for retention, just to handle our own storm drainage. But the easiest solution would be to use that retention pond for a combination of storm drainage and programmable open space. And since the city's stuck with this as part of the agreement to maintain it, it just seemed like if we could use that to improve it, have parking maybe shared there on the weekend, it just seems like a good solution if we can get it to work out. But it's it doesn't sound like they've really put a ton of thought into exactly what they're gonna need on that site. And so it's kind of premature, but conceptually, I'm hopeful that something can be worked out there.
Yes, I see what you're saying. I would love to see something like that happen. I'm just trying to, sorry if I'm getting something, I'm missing something here, but that retention pond that's currently there is owned by the school's it's within the school property. And so the requirement of green space and open space, which would still stand for your development, wouldn't include that property. So are you thinking about expanding it so that your property, you're donating some land, or are you just thinking about
Well,
money exchange?
And so we have a requirement to meet our own and to meet our own open space obligation. So the layout that I've shown you does do that.
Right.
But the master plan calls for something more in the area. And so the planning commission said, hey, look, we let Severing come in and we didn't do anything with them. We let Wall come in and we didn't do anything with them. There's really only two places left, us, and I can't remember the lady that owns the property to the south of us that is not excited about developing anytime soon. Apparently, I haven't talked to her, but that's the message that we get. So there's really those two bigger areas, but there's also this area that is going to be open space because it has to function as a retention pond or a detention pond. So the idea is, while this is happening, I mean, I'm kind of being used a little bit to to spearhead this, and I'm okay. To find out if there's something more that could be done. Maybe we concentrate some of our open space in that area instead of having it dispersed like we had it within our property. But you're going to be collecting, I mean, between Severing, us, and Wall, a huge amount of impact fees for parks and open space. So there's going to be a ton of money generated right there off of those projects that can be used for improvements in that area. So it's just kind of exploring all the options there as we work through our design.
Thank you. I know you're really early in the stages, but thank you for your.
And so we'll keep going with it. It's hard to pin them down too, because they just haven't done the study, the demographic study on the elementary school, exactly what they need. But he did send over a couple of different layouts.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I think you called it the Wall property, I don't remember in recent history that coming in through planning commission or anything. Do they just have an idea of what they want to do? Or do you know that they've gone through any approvals? Cause I don't remember in my recent memory.
They just have received, they were annexed in the R4 zone. They did have a concept plan of townhomes as well,
Okay.
but just,
Do you remember how many years ago that was? It several years ago?
it's been several. It's far enough ago that they would probably need to reapply because they actually didn't have a formal site plan they've even applied for yet.
Okay.
But
All right.
part of theirs was waiting on the tank as well. They
Yeah.
needed the tank to
The
develop,
water problem has since been resolved. Yeah.
sort of.
Oh, well, yeah. Maybe that's a question, but I thought we were good now because of the 2 million gallon tank.
When it's all the way. And maybe we shouldn't be, I don't know. I haven't been told that it's all the way online yet.
Is Dave hiding somewhere?
Almost.
We're
That's what I
we're a
said.
couple of
We're
weeks
almost
away
there,
from
yes.
getting our official green light on it.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right.
So Wall has been working on, that's all I know as well, but I know that Wall has been working on layouts and we have, on the north end, 150 comes in along our property line on the west, and then somewhere down the line, somebody moved it over to the east. So we're kind of working together to split that jog to get it down there and still provide access to the elementary school.
And just one last thing, I think, I mean, this is early, but your concept for ownership, is that something you even delved into yet? Or is, because I know with state going in different directions on that, meaning, percentage and stuff like that, is that something that's in your mind yet, or?
It is in our mind, and we have met with the governor's representative 3 times now on different things. They have different financing options available. He's very aggressively going out there and spreading the word. So we're aware that he's meeting with different planning commissions, city councils, mayors, staff. And it is something that we're looking at. I don't know exactly what the breakdown would be, but it is something that's on our mind.
Any other questions for Travis?
I'd like to ask Travis a question. And I know this is a little premature, Travis, and Councilman Pulver made that same comment, and I know that your preliminary plan here is a little bit preliminary, but I have the same concerns myself as Councilman Pulver. I'm looking at what you have, and obviously this could change, but I'm looking at 156 apartments and 158 townhomes, if I did the calculations correctly. So, I mean, are any of those townhomes going to be, how many of those townhomes are you guys planning on? Are they all ownership, or are they going to be rentable, capable of being purchased by investors and become rentals as well?
We are premature. That is part of our discussion. We haven't nailed down any kind of percentages there, but we recognize the desire for the city, for the state. He has shared in his presentation this breakdown that basically says the average wealth or net worth of a renter is like $14,000, and the average net worth of a homeowner is something on the order of $300,000. It was very dramatic. So we recognize that there's some good that can come with that as well. So we don't know the exact breakdown, but we are aware of it. It'll be part of what we factor into our decision making and our presentation moving forward, and even the way that we design it so that it makes sense.
Okay, because I'm just concerned myself. We're probably looking at over 1,000 units that still have not been built, and we just approved what was that, an 80-20 split with Century Farms. 80% of the 62, I think, that are being built are going to be rentals. And so I just think the council maybe, I speak for myself, obviously, but I'm just a little bit apprehensive about looking at, this development being, and again, I know it's preliminary, but I would rather have kind of the feeling of the council, but, with 50% of this being rentals, I just don't think that's a productive thing for the city, nor do I think it is productive for being able to give young adults and young married couples the opportunity to get into home ownership and equity. So I would kind of like to hear what the other council members are thinking about that rental idea.
So maybe
We're just talking annexation, correct?
yeah, tonight we're just
We're
talking
way too early
annexation.
for that.
Whether we're
No, I understand that. I just feel like we need to maybe send Travis home with maybe some thoughts as to whether we're excited about having another 150 apartments. I mean, from this point on, this will be a design. By the time we see this next, it's going to be a design. And I just didn't want Travis to come back and say, this is what we're thinking, and have us say, well, we're not all that excited about the apartment. So I know it's just I understand it's just a annexation, but I think would be wise to at least give them some thoughts about the apartments. But
I saw John had his hand up.
Well, so it might be helpful for me to talk about what the planning commission recommended, and then what I think because of that conversation staff is recommending, which is the planning commission said that to approve the R4 zone with conditions that public space be negotiated, and there's a collaboration with neighboring developers to combine open space, and basically have this kind of conversation about that. That really goes down the line of a development agreement. And so that would essentially say that what the planning commission is saying and what staff is saying is that the annexation should be approved contingent on the approval of a development agreement. So the idea would be that, we've done our public hearing. We could now go into the development agreement conversations with West States. And then bring back a full agreement for approval of the agreement and the annexation at a future meeting. And then the council could talk about these things in that conversation, outline, hey, these are the expectations. And then it would give the developer a chance to respond meaningfully to each thing that's being discussed, as opposed to if it was all just greenlit tonight and you said, okay, green R4 zone, go for it, then technically they could apply with any application that would meet the R4 standards, and none of these conditions that you're talking about would be even in the mix. And so really, if that's the direction the council wants to go, you can give kind of a nod to the annexation under the R4 zone, but it would need to be contingent on a development agreement, which is why I think you wouldn't actually probably vote to approve it tonight if you're making contingent on agreement. Those should be done in the same night for just ease of conversation for everybody, if that makes sense. And technically, legally, based on the training I had today, we are not required to annex property into the city, even if it's in our annexation declaration. However, I would say this property is within our service boundaries. It makes a lot of sense to annex it. It's kind of in the middle. And so I think that's probably what staff recommend is that we talk about approving the annexation and a development agreement on the same night. But we'd want that to be quick, because obviously people can't sit and wait for years for properties to work out. So that would be our recommendation as staff.
Okay. Any other, Councilmember Dowpaz?
Yeah, I feel like we're at the annexation discussion portion of this whole thing. So while I understand Councilman Severing's concerns, that's something that kind of comes down the line in my mind. This is to me more of a discussion around, do we approve an annexation to happen, and are we okay with the R4 zoning? That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Okay. Councilmember Watson?
Well, I just had some thoughts, and maybe John needs to help me understand more clearly, but in the Planning Commission meeting, I feel like they really hit the nail on the head. I feel like they pointed out, I don't know if you all listened to it, but I feel like they really pointed out that in the planning world, there's caution against putting all your high density in the same part of a city in one little pocket. And that's what we've done. And there's nothing out against it. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't annex this or we shouldn't have the R4. But I think that the Planning Commission had some really great ideas on how to alleviate that problem a little bit by having extra amenities or extra green space and open space. And maybe that does make it harder on this particular developer than the neighboring developers. But I think that if there was a way for them to all pool their green space together, as the Planning Commission had recommended, they are neighboring properties. So if there is a way that instead of having, a couple of small parks within a block of each other, or a lot of small little green space areas where you can throw a Frisbee, but you can't play a soccer game, what good is that when you have 1,000 kids? At another point, they said, if you have 3,000 kids, we're going to paint ourselves into a corner. And so I think in if we have a bigger picture view here, and not just, oh, this one is coming through, I'm going to approve it. Oh, this next one's coming through, I'm going to approve it. But if you look at a grand scale, this idea of having a bigger green space is appealing to offset some of that higher density and a lot of people all crammed in one spot. So I see what the developer has been saying about working together with the school and in that retention pond that's already currently there. But where my concern is if the retention pond was already going to be there as part of the school property, then these several different developments, 3 in a row here, or 4 in a row, whatever it is, they're still going to have their green space requirements, and that school property is kind of separate from their green space requirements. So why can't we make it all one? If they put their green space all along west side, and it's neighboring across the street, I guess, from the school and the school's retention pond. And somehow it's all one big green space area. I like that idea. I think if our previous parks director was still employed by the city, she would say that our ratio of parks to citizens was already low, but as our city continues to grow, we're not going to have the opportunity to have green space, and it'll be too late if we don't take advantage of that now. This is a great opportunity because we don't have to just go out and purchase the land as a city and have all of that money now. Anyway, I realize this is just an annexation, but I feel like if we could continue the recommendation that the Planning Commission already put forth to have a ball field size public space in connection with the other developers nearby, and have that discussion with the nearby developers, separate from the school, but adjacent to it, were their words, and not wetland, because that's not usable for the kids, the 1,000 kids that are going to be there, but something that is usable like a ball field. I just think that would be something that we should recommend as the developer goes through this process just from the get-go. So I realize, I don't know how this works, what you were saying, John, that we need to have the parameters set. Is that now when we make the annexation?
So what staff is recommending is that you kind of given it, you don't take an official vote tonight, but you essentially say you would like to explore the annexation under the R4 zone with a development agreement. And that's the recommendation from staff. So that would allow this conversation to go into a different meeting with an intense focus, probably a work session in December on this item. I would say in November, except that's election night. We won't meet that night so it would be December 4th or 3rd or something.
Hey, John. John, can you? Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Barker. If I understand this right, a couple of things. We shouldn't be separating the annexation from the discussion on the development agreement, which would address these issues such as Councilmember Severing brought up. So I think your advice is to postpone the annexation and come back with the development agreement at the same time.
Yes, Mayor.
Also, just to clarify one thing, I believe, John, you told us, and I agree with Councilmember Watson, that we need a park in this area. We need open space in this area. But I want to make it clear that based upon standards, we have more acreage per resident than is recommended by national standards. Is that correct? Because we keep talking about having this shortage of land for parks. I don't believe it's the land problem. I believe it's the location problem. Is that correct?
It's the developed land problem.
Right.
So we've got 133 acres, but
Right.
about 60 or 70 of it's developed.
Right, but we have enough acreage if we develop it, right? To meet the standard, to exceed the standard, is that correct?
Yes.
Which the reason it's undeveloped, frankly, is we have a funding problem. Because Barker Park would satisfy a lot of that, but I do agree with Councilmember Watson. It's the location of the parks that we're looking at. So just wanted to clarify that in my mind, but I think that your recommendation that this be postponed is good.
Councilmember Del Paz.
One thing we haven't talked about, every public school that I've ever seen basically has a free park that's kind of available to the city that surrounds it. So we haven't even talked about that. So there's going to someday, and nobody knows exactly when, but someday there should be, and this isn't a guarantee because Weber School District could change their mind. So we got to be careful about that. But in general, there will be an elementary sitting right next to this development, and it will have a reasonably large space with probably a playground and soccer fields and all that good stuff. So I feel like a lot of the requirement for open space is fulfilled just through that alone. So, I mean, I feel like sometimes we postpone these things like way too often, and I'm okay if we want to explore that, but I would feel comfortable approving the annexation. This type of thing is part of the general plan in the area, is to have higher type density. So it's nothing that is, I don't think, a surprise to anyone. And so that's just kind of the way that my mind's thinking. I would feel comfortable, approving an annexation and generally approving the R4 zone, or the intention that it be an R4, and then move forward with, discussions with the developer.
Council, I'd recommend we follow the recommendation of our legal counsel and we do not annex it in. He's been very clear in that regard, that the development agreement and annexation need to take place at the same time. I believe we should follow his counsel.
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
I'm grateful the mayor echoed what my thoughts were. I think as we look at this development agreement, I would like the developer to know our thoughts about apartment complexes versus ownership. And I totally agree with Councilwoman Watson. I think we need to be looking at a larger park in this area. I don't think that the park that's located at the elementary is sufficient. So my feeling would be to follow city manager, attorney, mayor direction to put this on hold.
Do we have a motion whether to approve ordinance 2024-20 annexing this property, or are we going to postpone? Someone's got to make a motion.
I would motion it, but it will die for a lack of a second, or, so I'm not going to go there. That's the feeling I have. So I'm just not going to make the motion.
Councilmember Watson.
I think this, your work looks great. And I think that it's probable that it will be an R4 and it'll be a great development. So I think that just speaking for myself, I think that we can come to some agreements and make this work, myself personally. But I will make a motion that we delay this so that we can have our annexation with a development agreement for ordinance 2024-20.
Right, thank you. So we have a motion to postpone from Councilmember Watson. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Councilmember Severing, thank you. So we'll start with the vote with Councilmember Severing. We'll start with you, and then we'll work our way down with Councilmember Pulver, Dalpez, Watson, and myself. Councilmember Severing?
Yay.
Councilmember Pulver?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalpez?
No.
Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So this motion or this annexation's been postponed.
I have one question after the fact. Why didn't we know that we needed a development agreement before we came to council? I don't necessarily want to discuss it here, but just something food for thought. Anyway.
I also wanted to add, I feel like this is different than we've done it in the past. I felt like we were coming to approve an annexation and that's it. And all other things would follow. The development agreement discussion would follow later on. I'm a little confused, but it's okay that it's gone this way. We'll work through it.
Okay, so moving on to item number 5. Discussion and or action to approve resolution 7-2024, amending the North Ogden City Policy for city sponsorships and events to include the Weber Communities That Care. And our presenters our city manager, John Call.
So council, this is the policy that was adopted earlier this year. We're revisiting it because a question came up, 2 questions. One is the Weber CTC wants to utilize the senior center at no charge, specifically for a private event. So they're going to do a recognition of people who've been involved in helping. And in the policy, it says, first off, they're not considered a partner. with the city because they're not on the list of partners down here at the bottom. Oh, sorry, here at the bottom. So I've added them as F. But then also the only people or the only events that qualify for free use of city facilities are city sponsored events or city partnered events, which are open to the public. And so I've added another category after C, where C says anything that's, a nonprofit, they need to pay the nonprofit rate. So I've added a D that says non-public partnered events. These groups can utilize the city facilities for no cost, even for events and activities which are not open to the public, with reservations being made through city offices. And so that just would allow us to do that without charging a fee. Otherwise, the policy that was adopted would require us to charge a fee based on the clear information from the council. So we just brought it back. They would like to use it on November 12th, I believe. And we've already kind of tentatively blocked that day out for them, whether they would pay for it or use it for free. So staff is recommending that if the council wants to add them and then we should add them. So that's one question. And the second question would be, do you also want to allow all of these partners, Just a Break, Kiwanis, the Major Brent Taylor Foundation, Northview Senior Citizens, Build Barker Park Committee, and Weber Communities of Care the ability to utilize the facilities for free with no rental fees? For non-public events, I should say. So like Kiwanis's meetings are open to the public. So they're technically public events. Same thing with like Northview Seniors. Most of their stuff are open to the public.
Correct. Thank you. Any questions for John Call? Councilmember
So
Colbert.
does this open it up to, I don't know. I feel that we kind of crafted it and now we're changing it again, but which is fine because it's a living document. But for the most part, we're trying to figure out how to, if it's non-public, I don't know. At the same time, I think it's a worthy cause, et cetera, et cetera. At the same time, are we opening ourselves up to everybody? It's only the list. Right. But then someone's going to say, well, what about the choir that, they're going to come and, the men's choir, or I don't know, pick your, that says, hey, I want to be a partner. So are we constantly adding to this list? Not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, I don't know. To me, the whole point was, I thought we were good, but we're adding this and I'm not quite sure if I agree, but because we're saying that they can use it without non-public event for free. And I'm trying to figure out in my mind to wrap around it, because we already had talked about the nonprofits, et cetera. I don't know. I'm just trying to understand the reasoning behind it. If we already have something that says, this event or this organization, I don't know if it's a discounted price. What I'm struggling.
Well, and it's a unique thing because in the past, normally what would have happened is the communities, the Weber Community Cares would have called me or the mayor and said, hey, we need to do this. We really need a space. And we would have probably waived the fee and said, hey, we're partners with you. In fact, Councilman Dowpaz has been on their board. We've always had a city representative on the board, and we would have said, hey, we're tied closely together enough. We would have just said, do it. But with this new policy, it kind of tied mine and the mayor's hands, and we said, well, we have to run it this way if we want to let them use it for free. And I think rental for it is $250 for a nonprofit. So that would be the fee if they weren't on the list and we didn't change the policy.
Well, we qualify for discounts. Well, what if the discount is 100%? I don't know. I'm just thinking.
So if the discount's 100%, then this is where you get into that weird,
Yes,
then you'd have to give every nonprofit the same discount, which we can do. But there's a lot of nonprofits out there that you wouldn't think are nonprofits.
All right.
Yeah, this one's hard because it feels like it's the first time that this policy is put to the test. I mean, in the past, it just clearly, in my mind, would have been a no-brainer. The CTC asks to be able to use it in this format. And it's not like a private benefit that is going to be for anything weird. It's for the key leaders that have been involved with the CTC. So it will be probably other city councilors from other cities. It will be police chiefs that are involved in that organization. It will be all these different people that are so. But then when I look at the list and I see that all of those not businesses, but all of those 501c3s would be similarly eligible, it feels slightly weird. There's just at least one or two of them that feel more weird to me that would be allowed to be able to use the senior center for free because they're wrapped into this policy. So this all came about because Julie Anderson reached out to me and asked if the CTC would be able to use the senior center for free for this purpose. And my initial reaction was like, sure, let's go for it. But I said, well, I got to talk to the other city councilors. I got to talk to John. I got to see what's up. And John brought up that, hey, well, we kind of bound ourselves a little with this new policy. So yeah, I want to hear what everyone else has to say, but it's just we're in a predicament.
Councilmember Watson.
I think where we have a great deal of influence and participation with this organization, they certainly should be added to the list. Whether or not this should be something we open up to the entire list, I don't see as a huge problem. I mean, maybe if they use it for an event, then we lose out on the $250, but there's a very small list there. And I don't think it's like we're going to be taken advantage of. We already partner with all of them and they certainly wouldn't want to lose our trust or our partnership. So I feel like that partnership means that we trust what they would do and I'm fine with it. I think it's a good cause.
There's no other discussion. I'll be looking for a motion to approve or deny the resolution.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 07-2024, amending the North Ogden City policy for sponsorships and events to include Weber CTC.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Watson, second by Councilmember Pulver. So this will be a roll call vote. Councilmember Severing. Oh, is there any other discussion first? All right.
Man, you're busy.
I know.
Let's get it done.
Don't put me in charge of a meeting.
You're doing good.
Yeah, you're doing great.
No, I
Okay.
think we'll be okay. It's just it just opens it up. If if it becomes a problem, then we'll fix it. But I think at least, like you said, it paused us to say, well, wait a minute. So I think that's the whole purpose, is to pause and think for little things that sometimes can get ahead of things and people, what you see, now we're approving. So
John.
I think council, we can keep track of any times that there are private events and give you an update of, hey, it was utilized these buildings, this many times for private things.
Okay, so now we'll go to vote. Councilmember Severing,
he's talking.
you're on mute.
Still.
You're still muted.
Give us a thumbs
There you
He
go.
looks like he's pondering deep.
Yeah.
My answer was yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Pulver's a yes. Councilmember Dowpaz,
Yes,
Councilmember Watson.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay, so that motion passes.
just a slight comment after that. I highly feel like we'll have to revisit this at some point, but I think it's a good solution for the time being and let's keep our eye on it.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to discussion on the 2024 RDA grant project funding, and we're going to hear from our presenter, John Call.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I was like, I lost my PowerPoint. Okay, so council, we wanted this on a work session. This is intended to just be educational about the RDA. And at the end of the presentation, this is kind of here's the questions we want to answer at the next meeting. So this meeting, we're not talking about specific projects or money that's available. We're only talking about the history of the RDA and those 13 things that Scott put in his staff report. I apologize that it's me presenting. Scott would have done a better job. But yes, don't get on a mountain bike is the solution. So our RDA was established in 1990 by the council. That was after a significant study was completed. You saw it in the packet. And then that study, it outlined the 13 items that were in the staff report that says this is the purpose of the RDA. In the 90s, RDAs were heavily focused on blight. And blight could be anything from empty ground to vacant buildings to basically something that wasn't producing money was kind of all encompassed in that blight definition. And so that's why those 13 items really kind of focus on the goals to basically create economically generating properties. We started collecting our increment in 1993. But our base year was still 1990. And I'll talk a little bit more about base year, but that established what the property tax value was in 1990, even though we didn't start collecting it till 1993. And then RDA funds have been used for various things like Lee's, the Aquatic Center, Smith's, various infrastructure projects, things like that. The flowers for a while were paid out of that. Some of the money that was spent in economic development by the Economic Development Committee was spent out of RDA funds, the benches, planters, things like that. So there's been quite a few different things. RDAs are now called CRAs, but we're not going to get into that acronym. Same concept. Property tax dollars are injected into the area to create a desired benefit, but the rules have become way more strict. The 1990 RDAs have a lot of loose, like you can use it for projects that generally accomplish the goals. But the new RDA projects are very specific. They say, these are the projects you will do, and this is what you think they'll cost. And as soon as those projects are done, you stop collecting increment. Increment is the difference between what the property taxes were and what they are today. And that has grown over time. But the idea is, if in 1990 the property taxes were 1,000, and in 2023 the property taxes are 4,000, then there's $3,000 of increment in there. And in the North Ogden RDA, we get 50% of that. So 50% of it goes to the other taxing entities as normal. They would typically be entitled to 100% of it, but the other 50% comes to the RDA to spend on these projects. And so in this scenario, there would have been $1,500 from this property this year, or last year technically, to spend on qualifying projects. That amount of money in that 50% share over the 30-year life has generated $7 million, give or take, of actual increment money, which means the RDA got that much and the taxing entities got that much. And so in theory, that $7 million that the RDA got helped to create more taxable value. By a good example is Smith's Marketplace and Lee's. When acres went dark, the RDA helped get Lee's in, right? And so it helped keep the economic value of the area up, not just sales tax, but property tax. So sales tax is kind of a city-only benefit that we get, although the state gets some benefit, but the other taxing entities don't get sales tax, only cities do. And then the project listed those 13 goals that were in the staff report, and we'll hit those in just a second. But I really wanted to focus on this is RDAs, this is the history of RDAs, this is how they're created. And I guess the question, or are there any questions? Is there any confusion about not necessarily the purpose of the RDA, because that's in the staff report. We'll jump into it in just a second. But is there questions about the physical, how it's made up, the rules, regulations, things like that?
So I was told that, or I remember us talking about that this increment or RDA or something is expiring, it's over. We don't have one anymore. Is that right?
We are not getting any more increment from the redevelopment area. It expired in December. And so this grant program is the way that we've essentially said, this is how we're going to spend the remainder of the money that we
Will
have.
we have an open RDA at any point?
We currently have a CDA open, which is a community development area, which is run by the same organization in the city.
It's just a different map. So
Yeah.
RDA is a certain map and CDA is a certain map.
Okay.
There's a layer on the Weber County GeoGizmo where you can pull up and see which map is which.
Thank you.
Yeah, so their 1990 rules were a little weird. You could technically have it up to 32 years. I believe ours was actually established for 30. But anyways, ours expired in 2023, meaning that was the last year that we collected any property tax increment.
That's that you can't use it either anyway.
Well, so at the end, under the rules is when you get to the end of it, you're supposed to identify this is how we're going to spend it. And that's why we said we're going to do this grant program. We've let the state auditor know that. And so that's why we need to spend the money. If we don't, then essentially we would just give it to the taxing entities that we held it back from, or that the county held it back from. Yeah. And so the 13 things that are listed, I don't want to read them all because it'll make Ryan late for his pyrotechnic activity. But if you read through those, you can see that there's a lot of talk about infrastructure. There's a lot of talk about curing deficiencies, and there's a lot of talk about creating economic health, not just for North Ogden, but for the state as a whole. And so kind of the assignment or the next step for the group is that when we meet again, we need to talk about how, well, there's the two kind of, I don't want to say they're simple questions, but maybe two more straightforward questions is there a maximum percentage that the city wants to give to a project? So I believe in an email from a resident, it was, hey, we should do 50% or 51%, or, pick a number. Is there a maximum dollar amount we want to do? Might be another question. And then the hardest part is going to be, how do you evaluate those projects that were submitted against those 13 criteria? And we had asked each of the applicants to identify out of those 13 criteria how their project met it. And that's why we gave you their submittals. Some did a better job of clearly identifying. Others said, oh, we meet all of them. And so that's something. But then really the next meeting is to talk about those 13 goals and prioritize those projects. And then this is just my opinion, so you can take it with a gallon of salt. I think if you fund everybody, then you're probably not doing the best service to the RDA that you could be, because not every project is likely to qualify in the way that needs funding. And some people have different reasons. Some people have other reasons, but it's going to be up to you as RDA board members and then eventually the council. So the RDA board will approve a budget and the council will have to approve it. So you're going to approve it twice. But you need to kind of decide what's important to you individually as a council member and a board member so that you can help the group create a priority list and then decide how to fund that priority list. And if, for example, you said the max that you would do as a percentage was 10% for every project, you would have enough money to fund everybody, right? You could give everyone 10% of what they asked for and they could go and do their projects. But if you funded 50%, you might have a hard time because some of those asks are quite high on spending that roughly $1.25 million. You would spend all that money if you gave everyone half. And so that's why you really need to prioritize and figure it out. But that's kind of we just wanted to recenter the conversation before we really delved back into the groups and did the project list again and moved forward with approving some funding. Does that help? Was there anything else that you'd like us to follow up with on an email on maybe clarify this or that?
It was really interesting to read through. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, if you ever see Jim Uri, pat him on the back. I didn't know he was on the city council in 1990. So he was part of the first RDA that was put in place. Historically, I thought that was awesome. But yeah, I think this is a lot to mull over and gives us a lot to think about. I don't know. So do we want to talk about percentages next time, or do we want to start that conversation now? What do you want to do?
I mean,
I'm open to whatever.
So one thing I thought that might be helpful is for the next meeting, we could bring a spreadsheet that's dynamic. And so we could say, here's all the requests, here's a maximum funding percentage and how that would play out. And then you could prioritize them in the way RAMP does it, for example. Big shout out to Kevin, who's the chair of the major committee this time, is that they basically prioritize things. And then as soon as the money runs out, they don't fund anything lower than that. And so we could say, hey, if you're funding at 75% or 25%, this is when your money runs out. And then you can order the projects based on scores or however you want to order them. And then you'd know, hey, we're funding to this level. And there may be even a conversation about, there may be some other ideas. One was brought up that in an email from a resident that, hey, you should inject more money into the pool so that it can float for longer. Initial indications are that it's did better this year than last year. I don't want to steal the mayor's thunder, although he might be on a plane by the time we get to that. But anyway, so there's those conversations that are still going to happen. So I would probably say in interest of time, especially based on our next two agenda items, if we talk about percentage tonight, we might.
I'm fine with
we
that.
might
I just
get
wanted
lost
to
in
see
it.
where we were
Well,
going.
we don't have to have the same percentage for everyone, right? That's the whole purpose of prioritizing and ranking.
Well, you could say this is the max percent.
Right.
And then you could say, but this project, we think we should only fund 25% as opposed to 35 or,
Right.
yeah.
So in my opinion, it sounds like if we did have a 50% max given, that would give us some wiggle room so that we could fund half on some and less on other. We're going to talk about that later. I'm just saying.
Do you like the idea of a dynamic spreadsheet?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we'll work on building that.
And I think it's also important to remember that we do only have a finite amount of money, which if we funded all the grants requests, it was, I don't want to say up the, yeah, I was going to say over $5 million and we have 1.2 to spend. So yeah.
It's all Eric's fault.
Okay.
The one thing I do feel bad about is we didn't have a percentage given to businesses from the beginning. I really wish we could have. I know it's not like we administer this type of thing all the time. So I'm not trying to be critical, but it makes me feel bad for the businesses that have applied because there wasn't a lot of certainty to what it meant that they were applying for. But it's all good. I think next time, if you have a dynamic, that would be awesome.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on RDA funding? All right, let's move on to number 7, discussion on the North Ogden City Green Waste Facility. Presenters David Espinoza, Public Works Director, Assistant City Manager. Any other titles I can throw on there? Okay.
So council, this discussion kind of comes up every couple of years and we want to hit on it while we're in council and kind of discuss it and see if your guys' thoughts have changed or if we want to continue to do what we've been doing for the last, gosh, I think we've been burning for over 12 years now. So, and so the discussion was that just that every year, in the fall, we burn at the pit. We collect all of the green waste for the whole year. And then in the fall, we burn all of that green waste. It's a cost-effective way to be able to basically restart over every year with the green waste facility. And so the other options are we could take all of that green waste and we could chip it. We don't own a chipper. to own a chipper, last time we looked into it was well over 400,000 for that 4-stage big chipper that would get it to a point that we could actually utilize those chips. So we would be looking into renting a chipper, or having a company come in and chip all of our green waste. To give you an idea, Weaver County chips their green waste. They do it 2 times a year. They rent a chipper and then their crews chip the green waste. Each of those times are a little over $12,000, John.
Yeah, in that range.
Yeah, so you're talking 25 grand for the year to chip. I don't know what their piles are compared to our piles as far as the size of them. But when we've talked in the past, when we've got bids to have like a company come out and chip them, it was over $20,000 just for the one time. But that was having a company come in, chip them, and doing that. The problems we've had in the past, we actually have chipped. It's been over 10 years since we've done it. It was when we had a huge windstorm here and the pile was too big to burn. It was just, so what we did is we burned the portion that we felt comfortable with, and then the rest of it we chipped. That cost us about, like I said, about 20 grand. And to this day, we still have some of those chips. Like they're not even, at this point, they're mulch. And it's just because we couldn't get rid of that stuff. I think the idea behind it is people think that, if you chip it, then we'll be able to sell all those chips. But, we don't have the ability to spray all this. I mean, because when you chip, you're chipping everything, right? Like, so there's weeds and different things in there. And so, when people would come get it, they would come get it one time and then they'd realize that like we were giving them a big pile of weeds and different things. And so then they wouldn't use it again. And so, we just didn't get rid of it very quickly. And we've turned it over. And then now, like I said, it's almost turned into almost a mulch. But even then, nobody's, taking that kind of stuff because of mold and different things. And then the other option is that you just close the facility. I mean, you close the facility down and we have people go to the transfer station. You go to Weber County and they do that. And so, like I said, every couple of years this kind of comes up, because it is like, for those couple of days, it's the smell's unpleasant and different things for the people that live near the pit. And we are getting more and more homes, near the pit. And so, like I said, this comes up every, now and again. And so we just kind of wanted to see your guys' thoughts on, are you guys okay with the way we're doing this? We do follow state and federal regulation, air quality regulations. We make sure that all of those things are being followed and that, that we're very safe with the pit. With the fire. We have multiple hoses that are connected to like fire lines, are down there as well as 2 big trucks that can also help put out a fire. So from a safety standpoint, there's always people there. We feel like we take, that we do a really good job with that portion of it. And it's by far the most cost-effective thing we can do for our residents. We're able, by doing this, we're able to keep those passes at that, when they buy a 10 punch pass, we're able to keep it at $2.50 a punch. If we're looking at chipping, it's probably anywhere from 3 to 4 times as much. So now you're talking for a 10 punch pass, you're talking maybe $100 or, and so it's just one of those things that, last year, I think we collected about $12,000 in revenue from the punch passes. Which is, if we had to chip that, and that was the other thing the county said, they chip theirs, but then they said at least 50% has to get hauled off because they're in the same boat that they can't get enough sold. And they even try to color theirs and they still can't get enough sold. And so they end up hauling it off. Well, they own the facility, so they get to haul it off for free, right? Well, so for us, if we had to haul off 50% of the chip that we chip, or, that we chipped, we were either taking it to Moldings or to the transfer station to dispose of. And so that's just another cost on chipping. And so the reason we burn is just that, we feel like it's a cost-effective thing that we're able to keep this green waste facility going. And if we don't do that, then we're going to be in one of those things where we either fill up the place and we can no longer use it, or we have to chip it and we have to start making those passes a lot more money. So thoughts?
One other thought or data point I had, as my other job, I get all the burn permits for these 3 areas that I serve. North Ogden has roughly twice the amount of residents as Pleasant View, but it also has 70% of the burn permits as Pleasant View. So Pleasant View has twice or half the residents in North Ogden, but more burn permits are getting pulled every year because our residents are taking it to the green waste. So it's the same, the burn's the same time as everyone else's burn when they burn their yard waste. So if we do away with the burn pit, you're just gonna have more residents burning in their own yards. I don't think and then it's at longer periods of time.
And it's everywhere.
Yep. Any questions for Dave? Councilmember Pulver.
So yeah, I did some deep dives as well. And like you said, it was 12 grand talking because it's in the miscellaneous revenue. And they do. And the other thing, which is going on right now, by the way, is taking the service that we're providing, North Ogden City is providing, is taking stuff away and taking it to the green waste for free. So, and then recycle as well. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, not just green waste, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that can go to green waste to be disposed of. And to me, that's a huge service that North Ogden does already. We make a little bit of money off the recycle stuff, but for the most part, it's, we're just a sunk cost for taking all that stuff for free. So, the cost trade-off, like you were saying, is either you burn it and or the people that, because we could get each person that has that green waste could get a permit and burn it, which I saw quite a bit. And and the other thing is that wood burning stoves are around. I mean, that's something that people don't kind of realize as well as you farther go up the hill to the older homes. I know when a certain resident is getting cold because I go outside and I can smell his wood burning stove kicking into gear. So, to me, there's a lot of different things that do smell. It is horrible. I was over there during part of that time, and it's noxious, but at the same time, so is forest fires. There's a whole bunch of things going on. Whether or not we closed, to be honest, I used the green waste Saturday because of tree limbs that I had to get rid of. Instead of burning them, I took them to the green waste on Saturday, and it was ginormously already half full already. So it's being used extensively by our residents. I think it would be hard to shut down. I think it would be hard to chip, hard to haul away. We're following state guidelines. It's not spectacular for the residents that are around it. At the same time, I have to think about the whole city, not just the few. It's a horrible decision, but at the same time, we got to think about the entire city. So that's my thoughts.
Councilmember Watson.
Dave, can you tell us how many days a year the burning happens? 2 days for the whole year. And how many people
Concurrent
would you
days.
say, 2
2 days in a
concurrent
row,
days,
yeah.
right? How many people or punch passes do we sell? How many people is the service?
$12,000, man.
We sold 1,200, which is about, gosh, I don't even know what,
The revenue that yeah.
4,800.
4,800 at 250 a piece.
Yeah, so if at 250 a piece, it's like 4,800 passes and some people carry some over from last year, right? So,
But they have 10 punches, so you're servicing those same people 10 times 4,800. Okay.
$25.
So it's $25 for a 10 punch pass.
Yeah.
So that's why it's 250 an entry.
I see.
So
Okay.
4,800
I
entries.
misspoke. Okay. I'm just saying that it seems to me that there's a lot of people that benefit. I spoke to a resident who had some complaints. And I had some questions and I reached out to Dave and Dave explained a lot to me. And I was really grateful to hear the process. The temperatures are watched and there's certain levels of what temperature is allowed. And it seemed very detailed, very scientific, not just I'm going to go, I feel like I'm going to go take care of this, but a very complicated process. And I was glad to hear that. I was also glad to hear that this resident said that Dave said we could get them a hotel night if there was health concerns there. And I felt like that was a really professional way to handle it and to help the residents in their predicament that they were in. It is a tough thing for people who live close by. But it sounds like you've done all the research and found that this is the most economical way. Thank you for what you do.
I filled up half the mountain last year with my rocks from my yard, so I love the green waste. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Every year, each of us as counselors is going to receive phone calls and text messages and emails with complaints. But this is for, I think it was what Councilman Pulver was saying. It's for the greater good of the city. It saves everyone more money to do it the way that we do. So let's keep doing it the way that we do it.
All right, any other discussion on this item? Okay, we'll move on. Item 8, discussion and or action to approve the final plans for the 2025 Cherry Day celebration. Presenter John Call.
Again, you can get mad at Scott for mountain biking because I've talked a lot tonight. So, council, for Cherry Days, we've got to get the ball rolling. Typically, we like to open vendor or in the past, we've opened vendor and parade applications in January. So if we are going to do a Cherry Days, we need to start deciding what we're doing. So in the staff report, these were the recommendations I made based on the conversation that the council had last time. This is kind of the items that seem to be on most people's lists. It is still a lot of stuff. And so we need to decide how we're going to do it. One option is to dedicate an employee to be the one who bird dogs it. One option is to hire an outside group or a contractor to do it. One option is to go and lean on volunteers again. And so I think that what we've talked about is having it come back to the city, us having a little more control, not that we're after it, but taking the lion's share of the work, still involving volunteers. But in order to do that, I think that this type of list is probably what we're looking at. And then getting the group together, those people who are going to be involved in it and having them decide days and stuff like that. Typically, rodeo, skate event and some other stuff didn't happen on the 4th of July. And so I think that there's a lot of room to make this successful without doing it all in 2 days. Although if it's a week-long thing, it can be a little taxing on the people involved. And so which direction would you like to go, council? Are there items or activities that you would like added to the list or taken off the list? It's kind of a open discussion for the next 10 minutes.
I like your list.
So one item that I think could be added to the list that kind of goes with fireworks. If we're not doing a day long at the park again, and then with vendors and a concert, we could go back to doing similar small concert at Barker Park with the fireworks afterward, as we have done in the past, but that's just one thought I had. Anyone else have any?
The last that I remember, we were kind of thinking maybe a Thursday night, Friday, Saturday type of scenario. The majority of these events could be fit within that time frame. Obviously, the skate event and the rodeo, as has happened in the past, can kind of be sometime during that week, but that's and maybe pickleball. But that's That's generally where we're moving, I think, right? Was kind of maybe a Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, instead of the full on everyday activity thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks
that's
for your
what John's,
answer.
that's what John's
That's what
asking
I
us.
think, that's what I think we're heading to is what I'm
So
saying.
I think that works good this next year,
Yes. And the year after that.
because Thursday's the 3rd, Friday's the 4th, Saturday's the 5th. But which is actually fine. Like, we don't have to decide what we're doing forever in the future. But if that was the approach, I would say that it might be similar to what we did with the residents involved, and say those people who are involved in the planning, let them put together a schedule and then let you know. Because if someone really says, well, I really think the car show or like the flick and float needs to not be on Thursday night, it needs to be on the Saturday before. You know, if Justin says, hey, that's how we'll make it successful, then I think those are things that we could accomplish, or on the Saturday after, which would then be Friday. But so I think, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the long term. I mean, it's just a good opportunity this year to do the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then the year after that, probably a pretty reasonable opportunity. And then maybe I'll be voted off by then and I won't have to worry about it. So.
Do you feel like you're playing Survivor sometimes?
Yes.
It depends how this cherry days activity.
Yeah.
And so then, council, what are your thoughts on the two ideas that are really kind of the ones left, which is a city staffer takes the lead and works with people, or do you want to go to the idea that the mayor talked about, where the council might take the lead, and because of that we increase the council stipend to say, hey, like, you're going to be investing 5 hours a month, you know, now till July, and then 20 hours that month of July, so we should compensate the council more? What are your thoughts heading that direction?
I told Councilman Pulver that I respected his ability to just say, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, because he was very involved this last year. And I think it was eye-opening to him and everyone that just how much it takes. So I'm leaning in the direction of, I don't think we should lean so heavily on council members this year. I don't know exactly what that would take from a staff perspective, but and with the caveat that I'm willing to help. I mean, the luau, 100%. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be serving food, doing whatever. But I'm just saying to completely take it on and completely bird dog it. It sounds overwhelming. I have a job where I wouldn't be able to take off that amount of time. I'm just being real with myself and everyone. So, yeah.
And the fact I'm not an events planner, but just saying, so, and I think somebody said it, and I can't remember who, that you have to be kind of enthusiastic. You have to be like, I want to do this type of thing, you know, like for Bill Barker Park, I want to do this. I want to see, I'm passionate about it. Any one of these things, okay, but I'm not passionate about, you know, doing all this stuff. So I think that's the problem that I face, is that if you're not passionate about something, you're setting yourself up to fail. And I don't want to do that, because there's too much involved. There's too much at stake to make sure that these events go off without a hitch and are great for the city. So that's why I'm like, nope. So anyway.
And if that's the direction the council's leaning, we do have the option of potentially talking to our events consultant, you know, that does some of the other activities, and seeing if maybe she has capacity to take this on, obviously probably for an additional fee. And that's kind of where I talked about earlier with the contracting it out. So if the council's open to that, we could bring that as an option, where she could be the person that organizes and bird dogs. And if at some point in the future she doesn't renew her contract, that we'd find a new person to do that kind of thing for her, or in place of her. So
I love that idea. I'm happy to help and to do service and to participate and help plan. I'm not an expert, and so I would hate to ruin something. But if there's help needed, volunteer help needed, I'm there. I would feel more comfortable signing myself up for something that's a high demand if there was some kind of experienced mentor that I could turn to. But I also have had communications with our events coordinator, and she's interested in possibilities. And so I'm confident that we ruled out enough of the high priced. I totaled it. Sorry, I'm kind of nerd here, but I totaled all of the losses that we had on the things that were eliminated and came to $67,400, somewhere around there. It was an estimate, but if we aren't having the loss of 67,000, then I feel like there could be a very small percentage of that loss that could go to help increase our contractor fees, a small, like I said, a small percentage of that, so that we're kind of meeting in the middle and we're not losing that much money, but we're still providing a great event.
And I'm gonna put the spin on it that we did the time before. It's not the loss of the money, it's a less monetary impact or investment in the event.
Yes.
Because you know,
Right.
it's hard to measure how that $67,000 changed people's lives.
Yes.
And we knew that it's never been a money-making activity. And so if we can break even and still impact people's lives, then that's going to be really good.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you brought that up. That's a very good point. I should have thought of it that way.
And the other point that's been involved in this the last 2 years, that committee raised a whole lot of money fundraising because they knew they were going to lose money on the carnival. So if we're not going to have the carnival, who's going to be, I mean, we're probably not going to fundraise. So that's the other, so.
They did a great job. They
Right.
really did a great
But
job.
if that's the other part of the equation is we got to have somebody go out and fundraise. So. Yep.
Are you volunteering? Is that what I heard?
I've got my contacts. I can go fundraise some money.
Okay.
It's the worst part. I hate that part
I know.
about the whole week, but I tried to hold my own.
If you need a partner, let me know. I can help.
I think this is a great list and a great plan moving forward, and I'm happy to help any way I can.
Okay. Well, so I'll put together a proposal for what it might cost to have to extend the contract with the current provider and see, because I think she would probably even do some fundraising too.
Mhm.
And so we can see what that might look like and how that would impact the finances and bring it back to the council in November.
Okay. Any other discussion for Cherry Days? All right, we're moving along to council reports. Mayor, while we still have you, do you want to give a finance report? Maybe not. All right, so we'll move on to Councilmember Pulver with Public Works Department. Oh,
It might be a
Department.
little distracting where I am. I'll get it next time. It's getting kind of loud here in the airport.
All right, okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, Councilmember Pulver.
All right. So I think I kind of spoiled one of them is the fact that we're doing the green waste pit is open. Let's see, we still got, it's all week, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then also Saturday 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Did I say 9 p.m.? Anyway, it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the weekdays. Free to residents. So just bring your driver's license and then you can get in. So the leaf truck is going around. I saw it myself. Obviously, the same schedule. Not obviously, it is going to be on the same schedule as we did last year, picking it up the day after your garbage day. So obviously, don't put it in the street. I think that was kind of a big thing: is don't put it in the street. Put it on the park strip, or next to the curb. Getting ready for snow. We saw snow on Ben, and so that's the time that they start cranking on the snow plows and getting that stuff ready. And then obviously there's some police cars they need to keep working on as well. And let's see what else. Sewer, they're working on the lining That's going out for bid. The big thing is up in my between 3,300 and 3,100, a whole bunch of water line projects that looks like I don't know what you would call it, but it's a war zone up there. And so, there's been a lot of residents complaining and asking questions. And so, I mean, the big thing is that they're going to asphalt the trenches before winter, let it settle. And then next year they're going to completely redo the roads, which will make everybody happy, but we just got to get to that point. A couple other things. We had a walkthrough on Barker Park, just trying to get some ideas between the city and the Build Barker Park Committee to try to figure out better collaboration that we can do and to use city resources better in that regard, since it is technically city land. Anyways, and I think, is that it? There's one other thing. Oh, I don't know, John, if you know this, but the development above, probably close to the top, that was crushing rocks, and are they done? Because it looked like they were wrapping up.
Yeah, I think the agreement with this council was they could not extend beyond, I think, the 31st of October.
Okay.
And so they're believe they're moving the equipment off and
Yeah,
not
I
asking
saw
for
it.
extension.
Okay. That's it.
Right, thank you. Councilmember Watson for admin and rec.
Yep, thank you. So Katie wanted to give a shout out to Public Works, who've been doing great on working on City Hall remodel still, and on top of their regular duties. They're appreciated. The trunk or treat event is happening this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at North Shore. There's going to be several city trunks there, all right next to each other. So that'll be a fun event. Welcome. We've already heard a welcome to the new officers. Also, Shonda Ivory, welcome, is our new general office assistant. And there are a couple of positions open as well still, so we can look on the website for that. As well, from the recorder's office, elections are upon us. Turn your ballots in at the drop box at the library. The new city website launch is fast approaching, and they're working really hard. I know they're working really hard to get that ready for November. So thank you, Ryan, and everyone who's been involved with that. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. And our city manager, John, do you have any capital project updates?
Yes, we with the detention basin relocation, that we're looking at an option with the NRCS to do an agreement where they will reimburse us when the money's available. So they spent all the money this year on Uinta Basin. And then the election is going on. And so no department heads are asking for anything until the election settles out. So anyways, that'll be some time. The water reservoir we touched on, it'll be done and approved by the state here really quickly. We are calling it the 2100 North Reservoir. The old reservoir was named after a family or some people who lived or owned ground in that area. And we've just decided to make it easier to just call it after the street location as opposed to anybody in particular. Waterworks Park, the contractor has the green light and they can just start essentially whenever they want to. They'll kind of fit it into their other schedules. I think they've got some asphalting work they're trying to get done before it freezes, because our stuff, they can do most of the prep work through the winter and then put the concrete in the spring. So Orton Park and Oaklawn Park and Mountain View Park, 2 of those 3 are slated for playgrounds. So they're deciding of those 3 which are the ones that are the worst. And most likely it'll be Orton and Oaklawn that get new ones. Mountain View would be the next one, and then the one after that would be Barker Park. And when those 4 are done, then we will have caught up all of our old playgrounds and we'll be on the 15-year schedule. So we won't have any that are than that 25 to 30-year life anymore, which is beyond the useful life. And then the aquatic center upgrades, we are getting bids, and we likely will come to the council sometime in November, early December with here's the budget, here's the list of projects. Some of them, the liner for the pool, for example, we will want the council to, we'll say, here's the people we've talked to, here's the bids we've gotten. this is who we'd like to go through, because it's more than $25,000, but the process itself doesn't lend itself to a formal public bid, because there's so few people in Utah that do the work. They're national, and the national folks don't look at our public notice website. And so we've been reaching out to national firms or trying to get quotes from qualified companies across the nation. Currently, just to put it in perspective, we've had quotes for the liner anywhere from 960,000 down to, I think, 290 is the lowest one we've gotten, although maybe it's 390. But we'll bring that to you so that the council can kind of approve the process. And if you have any concerns, you can make sure or ask questions and we can resolve them. We have, as far as I know, well, we've been making sure all the work is either some of the work with plumbing is with vendors we already use, or it's with folks who we don't have any sort of connection to, you know. So especially like the liner, you know, it's just some people we found on the internet. So we'll go through that when we get firm numbers, hopefully in November, so we can see if we can still get it in before spring. That's it.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll open up the meeting for public comments. Again, if you have a comment, come state your name, whether you're a resident of North Ogden, and try to keep your comments 5 minutes or less.
Just two quick comments. Philip Swanson, North Ogden resident. Really looking forward to the new slide at Mountain View Park. So if we could get that on the schedule sooner, just kidding. The other is, it's really hard to hear you out in the audience. Some of you are very soft-spoken, and being loud is not your nature, but in order for us to hear what you're saying, we need you to speak up and speak into the mic so that we can understand what's being said. It's very, very, I'm not the only one that's back there going, do you know what they said? And we have no idea what it is you're saying. So please speak up, speak slowly, speak loudly, even though it's not your nature. Thanks.
Sandy Cochran, North Ogden. I would like to ask the council to be mindful when you have a development coming in and they're letting you know ahead of time that they're planning on building. I don't know what he called it, but why can't we just say apartments so everyone knows what we're talking about? Using other words doesn't make it any different than an apartment. But keep in mind that you still have 480 apartments going in at Village at Prominence Point, and you have no clue if they're going to be filled. So I would keep that in mind before I approved a bunch more. Thanks.
Randy Edmonds, North Ogden. I'd just like to discuss this this burn facility. I live just a block away from that facility. I'm not the one that brought this to the attention and got it on the agenda tonight, and I'm actually quite surprised that the person that notified me about this meeting tonight isn't here. But I just want to make a couple of comments and get it on the record. I've lived in that spot where I live for over 24 years now. I was there before the burn facility was there. I appreciate the burn facility. I used it extensively. I'm glad that we have it. It's a great service to the people in North Ogden. I don't want it to go away, but something to just keep in mind. And I don't know, you guys treated it like it's just a 2-day nuisance, but it's really a lot more than that. And I'd like to have you consider that there may be a health consideration for people that live close by. You have canyon winds that come out of that divide every single evening and morning, and it blows that smoke directly into our homes. And so we're breathing it, and it's also saturating all the fabrics in our homes. So I don't know where this idea comes from that it's just an inconvenience for 2 days because that smoldering goes on for several days. And then the smell in our homes lasts for weeks. That smoke smell. So I'm really torn about this idea. I came here hoping that the chipping would be an option for us to consider. I see now, and I know that you used to do that, but I see now that, the expense of that, I was willing to pay more, and I was going to suggest that I'm willing to pay more than having to take my stuff down to the transfer site in Weber County. Probably not that much more. And so, yeah, I put up with it, and I've been doing it for all these years. But please understand that there's just more than a 2-day inconvenience that needs to be addressed.
We've got Susan Kilborn online.
Hi, Susan Kilborn, North Ogden. I have a few questions. I noticed under Cherry Days, you've got parade. Need a clarification for Gina and I as to whether that includes the kids parade, which we have been involved in for the last several years. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Second question, who do I submit a list of organizations that I belong to that are 501c3 Weber County to take advantage of the same opportunities that you have just amended the agencies that you are allowing to use facilities free of charge? Who do I submit those to? Because I belong to several and I'm going to submit them.
You can submit them to John Call.
Okay. And John, could you send me what that criteria is, please?
Yeah, I'll send you what information we have.
Okay, I appreciate that. And second of all, just out of curiosity, and you can answer it or you don't have to answer it, but I'm curious about how often the city council meets outside of city council meetings. Do you guys have set things that or do you just deal with things when they come up, or how does that work? Because maybe I might run for city council.
The only thing we've talked about adding is a retreat, which would technically still be a council meeting. It would be recorded and everything. Other than that, I think that once a year the council has dinner together, but it's usually around the holiday season, and there's a no business policy in accordance with state law. But two individual council members can meet and talk. It just can't be three of them. So I couldn't answer that for the council.
Oh, okay. So you guys don't have like a set meeting where you get together, say at 4:00 on the day of city council and discuss all the stuff that you're going to have to answer to all of us about?
We do have a pre-council meeting typically with staff and the mayor. So anyone who's presenting in the meeting and the mayor but that doesn't include the entire council. Our work sessions are the first Tuesday of the month as needed.
Okay.
And those are published at 6:00 p.m. So.
Okay. Hey, thanks, John. And everybody, safe Halloween and get your tail ends out and vote. Have a good night.
Thanks, Susan. Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go on to mayor, council, staff comments. Do we have any comments additional from staff? Dave says no. Ryan, no. Oh, John's no. That's all our staff in here. Okay. Council. Anyone have anything to?
Susan still stole it. Vote. Go vote.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Dowpaz.
I'll be real quick. Just point of interest, Weber School District, this is something I personally noticed, but everyone might be interested. Weber School District used to own 10-ish, 15-ish acres at the top of Lakeview Drive and or AKA Washington Boulevard. It is now owned by a private individual or private corporation. So I wasn't aware of that. So just so everyone knows, that's very top of Washington. I always thought was going to be a school. Now probably not. And then just real quick, wanted to mention we had a resident concern about leashing issues with dogs. And I know we don't have the time to address it tonight, but I think we need to just talk a little bit more about those issues and how it's impacting our residents and what we can do to help in that department. And then last but not least, I stopped by the Ben Lomond Car Wash on 2700 North. I think it's Far West or maybe Pleasant View on the north side of the road by the industrial park. I got to talking to one of the employees there that used to be the owner of that car wash. And he mentioned that the city might be able to use their digital kiosk for announcements for community type events. So I'm going to be in touch with one of their employees there to see. A good example would have been like to try to put the trunk or treat on there to announce it to people. But if we have anything that would be noteworthy, a lot of our North Ogden residents are coming in and out of the freeway all the time. So I think that'd be reasonable. So I'll report back to you what I hear from him.
Councilmember Watson.
I just, I feel bad that I didn't mean to be harsh in my comments earlier, that it's only 2 days. I was surprised when I found out that there's not burning that happens more frequently than that. I assumed it would be multiple times a year. But I do realize that it's a long process for those that live close and watch it. And I hope at some point we can build the barricades higher or, you know, find ways to alleviate that, you know, take advantage of hotel nights for those that are afflicted. And I just, my heart goes out to those who have to or be burdened with that at the expense of the city. That is nothing that I would wish upon anyone. And I should have been more considerate in my comments.
Right. Councilmember Severing, do you have anything to add tonight? You're muted.
I do not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll be looking for motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we had a motion by Councilmember Watson. Meeting's adjourned.
Can you run red and blues all the way? Because you got to go.